Kyle Renninger with Sea Salt and Cinnamon, and
I'm Amanda Renninger with Sea Salt and Cinnamon. We are a vegan food company based in Muncie. We do a lot of work all around the whole state, but today we are going to show you how to make our vegan pickle pasta salad. It is definitely something that's been popular through our Market Wagon store, and people order it oftentimes for summer. For us, it was one of our very first kind of successful vegan recipes that all of our friends really loved. So when we went to barbecues and things, this was something they would request from us, and they'd want big batches of it. So we're gonna make a nice big batch of it today. Kyle's gonna show you how to cut some of the vegetables, get the spices in there. We're gonna boil the pasta and mix it all together.
yeah. And we originally got this recipe from the Vegan Stoner. It's a blog, and they have a short cookbook as well. That was our first vegan cookbook purchase, and I think probably one of our first vegan blogs that we found.
We really followed.
It's been around for a really long time, but they still update it with some really great simple recipes that are easy to replicate and taste really good.
Yeah.
So,
All right, you want to get started?
all right.
Sounds good.
So first, I'm going to go over cutting vegetables in general. A trick that I learned not too long ago is you can take it's a liner like for a drawer or under a rug. You get some of that and cut off a small square. It makes a great non-slip mat for cutting boards, so it doesn't slide around, especially if you have like a metal top or a slick surface on top. So we have our cutting board. We have our chef knife. And first thing we're going to do is sharpen our knife. I always say a sharp knife is a safe knife. So the best way to keep your knife sharp is to get some sort of honing steel. They sell versions of this at grocery stores and Walmart, stuff like that. Yours would probably be a little bit smaller, more designed for like a home kitchen. But you want to take your chef knife, non-serrated blade, and you're going to basically start at the base of the knife and run it along to the tip. And then you're going to do the other side of the blade in the same way. So you want to have the blade at an angle, and you want to put a little pressure on it too. And you'll feel kind of catches wherever there's tiny nicks. And you can kind of work on those catches just to make sure you have a nice sharp blade. So you just do that a couple dozen times on each side, so you have a nice sharp knife, and then you're ready to go. So first we're going to start with cutting a bell pepper. Now this is actually the only whole vegetable that we'll be cutting for this recipe, sort of ironically, as a vegan recipe. Everything else is sort of prepared. We're going to cut up some pickles too, but so the bell pepper, I prefer the red bell pepper. You could use green or yellow or orange too, whatever your preference is. But what I really like to do with this, and I'm going to show you, I think Amanda's zooming in here a little bit. I call it around the world technique for cutting the bell pepper. But basically what you're going to do is cut a C shape around the bell pepper following the veins. So cut like that, and then this way. The first cut's always a little tricky because you're sort of just guessing what the inside looks like, but then after you see inside, you can kind of navigate your way around a little better. The reason why I like this is it helps to keep all of the inside together. You can cut off those last little bits too, just so you get every bit of it. And then you have all the seeds and everything that you're not really going to use intact, and you can put in your compost bowl. We love to compost. We use a company to compost because we have too many scraps and such to do on our home base. So then you can see we're going to be cutting strips into these sections. So you're going to take each big section using your bear claw technique. Keep your fingers tucked back. You're going to cut just strips, sort of like a fajita strip. So we're going to chop all that up first. So we have nice, fairly even strips. I also like to cut with the skin side down and the flesh side up. And with your chef knife, using what's called the pinch grip, make a nice, long, even, steady cut down towards you and then pushing away. And that way you're cutting all the way through the skin. Then you're going to take your little bunch here and just make horizontal cuts across the slices so you have nice, fairly even dice on your peppers. So then we're going to toss that in our bowl here. Super easy. That was really the hardest part of this whole dish, honestly. It's a really easy dish, but we really like it a lot. So like we said, a lot of friends bring it to us, ask that we bring it for parties and events and stuff. And since we started selling it through Market Wagon and through our website, it's been a really big hit. So I'm not sure why we're giving you the recipe. Now you don't need to order it from us, but I'm sure you still will. So you can use any kind of pickle that you like. Originally the recipe just called for dill pickles. We love Famous Dave's signature spicy pickles. I really like, I think it's called like Devil's Kiss or something, even spicier ones. I know Famous Dave is kind of a barbecue joint, but they make a really good pickle, I gotta be honest. So we like using those. And a good way to pull the pickles out is using some tongs. So what I discovered is these pickles have a lot of like spices and seeds floating around in there. And if you try to just dump them out, all that stuff sort of gets stuck to all the pickles. And then you spend all this time pulling off all the little seeds and spices and stuff that you don't necessarily want in your dish, but make the pickles taste great. We also make some really great pickles ourselves. Honestly, we do a quick pickle. Mostly do like pickled vegetables other than cucumbers, really. Not sure why, but I love pickled jalapenos. We make those a lot. It's really easy. Just basically boiling vinegar, adding whatever spices you want, putting it in a jar or airtight container, and then letting it sit overnight. So make sure we get all the pickles out of there. You can actually save your pickle juice too, and you can reuse it to pickle your own vegetables. So you could use the same pickle juice and pickle jalapenos, carrots, more cucumbers, anything like that. So we have that ready to go. For these, when you're hand chopping them, you can throw them in a food processor too. I just prefer them a little chunkier, not so much like a relish, but more just like a chopped pickle. I don't know how else to put it. So I prefer hand cut. We have like a big chopper that we use when we're making a lot. But to just make this amount, you're just gonna, again, use your pinch grip in your bear grip. Just sort of run the knife through, crossed a couple times, about 1/4-inch strips. So then you're going to come back through and go the other way. So really, you could leave it here if you want, or you can keep going and make it finer. Just keep going back and forth. So you want a couple smaller pieces in there, but just try to break up all the big pieces as much as possible. There's no wrong way to chop up a bunch of pickles. So, I feel like that's pretty good. So we're going to go ahead and toss that in the same bowl. Don't need to do anything else to it. I like a little bit of the juice in there too. Loosens up everything a little, so you don't worry about getting them too dry or anything. So that's really all the cutting that we have to do. So we're done with that, done with our cutting board and our mat and our knife. So now we have our bell peppers and pickles in here. Next, we're going to add some corn. So you can either use canned corn and just drain it, or you can use frozen corn, which this is, and just zap it in the microwave for a minute or two until it's thawed. It doesn't need to be really mushy or anything. You don't want it too mushy, otherwise it'll just turn into like corn mush in there. So that's why we like the frozen too. It holds together a little better, I think. So just gonna add in about a cup, or if you're using a can, you can just throw the whole can in. So then we're going to add some black beans to it, but we need to drain these, and we need to cook our pasta, and then we'll add everything else back in. So you're going to follow me over to the kitchen here. All right, so I'm going to boil some pasta and have my pot here ready to go. With a couple quarts of water in it. So you want plenty of space for your pasta to boil so that it can really roll around in the water. If you have too little water, that's one of the things that can cause the pasta to get gunky and stick together. So you want to make sure you have plenty of water. And then one of the other keys to boiling pasta, I know this seems simple, and maybe something some people know, but one of the things is salting the water is actually pretty important because it gives that pasta a lot of great flavor in the dish, and you also tend to not end up over salting the dish later if your pasta is salted properly. So we're going to turn, I already have my water preheated a little bit, so that's why it's steaming. We're going to turn the heat back on to get it boiling again, and we're going to add some salt. We like to use sea salt, of course, it's in our name, but another reason I like to use sea salt is because you tend to use less salt than you do with table salt. So it's one way to cut down on your sodium intake on your diet. Another great tip that I always show people is a great way to measure tablespoons. It's just in the palm of your hand. So if you take a tablespoon and measure it out and dump it in the palm of your hand, and then sort of practice with that, you'll get a great idea for how much a tablespoon is. And it's just a quick way to measure things like this. We don't really need a precise measurement. So I always say you want your water for pasta to taste like seawater. We're from Florida, so we know what seawater tastes like. Unfortunately, it's just part of growing up in the coastal region. But if you don't, it's very salty. So I just, just think of very salty water, and that's what you want it to taste like. So we have that going. Let the salt dissolve for a second. You can stir it around a little. And then we prefer bow tie pasta. It's widely available. You can really use any sort of shells. I would probably avoid any sort of long pasta like spaghetti or linguine. Probably wouldn't work too well for a pasta salad, but any sort of shells will work. So we have the pasta in, and now we're gonna let it come back to a boil. I'm gonna stir it a little bit while it's coming back. You want to stir it fairly frequently. You don't have to keep stirring it. You just want to make sure that it's not going to stick to the bottom or stick to the other pieces of pasta in there. All right. So now we're going to set a timer for about 9 minutes. Make sure it's nice and al dente. All right, so now we're gonna go ahead and get our black beans in the bowl while our pasta is cooking. Really easy, just regular black beans. You can even buy the low sodium ones, organic, whatever you like. I like the pull tops, it makes it a lot easier. And you're just gonna dump that in a colander. My colander is massive because we make massive amounts of food. And of course, recycle. So then you just want to rinse them off a little bit with cool water. Nice cool water. Get all that black bean aquafaba off. Shake it around a little bit. And then dump that in your bowl too. All right, so we're back on our pasta here. We're just gonna stir it every couple minutes, and you want a nice rolling boil. You don't want it overflowing, but you want it to be moving. You want the water to be moving the pasta around so you don't have to keep stirring it. All right, so it's been about 9 minutes. Our pasta looks like it's done. Stirred it up a little bit. We're gonna let a piece cool off here for a second, and then I'm gonna taste it. Perfect. You want it to be firm, not mushy, but you don't want it to crunch at all. So, and then you are also tasting it to get an idea for what the salty level is at with the pasta for later on when we're going to be adding spices and stuff to it. So now we're just going to drain it. You can use the same colander that you had your black beans in. So it's all going together. So, one misnomer that I think some people still think is that it's a good idea to rinse your pasta. I know the thinking behind it is to help it to stop cooking right away, but you're really just rinsing away all of that starch and the salt. So I don't rinse my pasta. I don't think it's a good idea. I think it ruins the pasta, honestly. So instead, just toss it in the colander a couple times, get most of the water off. And then you're gonna take a cookie sheet pan, spread it out on the sheet pan. You can take your spoon or spatula, move it around a little bit so it's a nice even layer. And then we're gonna throw that in the fridge for a couple minutes. It doesn't take very long to cool when you spread it out like this. All right, so we have our pasta nice and cool. It's probably about 30 minutes or so. Just let it sit in the fridge and cool all the way so it's nice and cool to the touch. It still will be a little bit sticky. It might stick together a little bit, but that's okay because we're going to be mixing it up with everything. So from here, we're going to just put it in our bowl with the beans and red pepper and pickles and corn. And really you could add any sort of vegetable that you like to it. Carrots might be good. Spicy peppers, I like spicy things, so you definitely do like some pickled jalapenos or fresh jalapeno, anything like that. So now we're just going to give it a little bit of a mix. It doesn't have to be super well mixed yet. Just give it a little stir with your spatula. Break up that pasta a little bit. So then we're going to add some vegan mayo. So there's a couple different widely available options right now. We have Follow Your Heart traditional veganese, which is fine, it's great. It tastes a little more like Miracle Whip to me. It's a little sweeter, I think. So I tend to prefer the Hellmann's. I really loved the Just Mayo. You guys remember Just Mayo? It was so good. What happened? But anyways, so we're gonna use the Hellmann's today. For ours, we actually make our own mayo because I'm still trying to replicate Just Mayo because it was just so damn good. But anyways, yeah, so we make our own mayo actually in-house that you can buy too through Market Wagon or through our website even. We make our own ranch and sour cream too. They're all really great. Especially our ranch. I love our ranch too, and that has a mayo base as well. So anyways, we're gonna add just about a cup to a cup and a half of this. You really kind of just gotta measure it based on the texture, and I'll show you what I mean in a second. So I usually just like eyeball. That looks like a little less than a cup, a little more than half a cup to me. So maybe do 2 scoops of that to start. If you have a big spatula, and then I just like to spread it around a little bit and then give it a good mix again. Sort of scrape down the sides of the bowl, get it nice and mixed. Okay, so that's pretty good. So now we're gonna add our spices. So we have some sea salt here. But like I said, we salted that pasta pretty good. So it tasted pretty salty to me already. There's also some salt in the pickle, so we don't want to go crazy with the salt, right? So let's start with everything else first. We'll start with some black pepper. So we're going to be adding, and the recipe for this will be included with the video, of course, but we're going to be adding about 1/4 tablespoon of pepper. So I don't like to use a lot of dishes when I'm cooking, so I just try to guess. So I have 1 tablespoon here, and that looks like about 1/4 of a tablespoon. So we're gonna add that, and then we're gonna add 1/4 tablespoon of smoked paprika. So I like smoked paprika a lot, and you're kind of missing that meaty flavor in a lot of vegan dishes, of course. So it's something that I frequently add to dishes. Just because I really like that flavor. If you can't find smoked paprika, you can use regular paprika or just leave it out altogether. So then we have a little bit of onion powder, and we're going to use about a full tablespoon of onion powder actually. So get it nice and loaded up there, add that in, and then we're going to do about 1/2 tablespoon of garlic powder. So have all that in. So I also wanted to mention you can also use spice blends. I think tagine spice blend would be really good mixed in this. It'd give that same kind of like smoky, meaty kind of flavor to the dish, and it would add a little bit of the citrus and yeah, I think that'd be a pretty good addition to this dish. You could also do some curry. I have like a hot curry spice that could be really good in there too. So yeah, just a couple different ideas. So now we're really gonna get it nice and mixed up. Make sure you get all those spices mixed around so you don't have any clumps mixed in, and all the veggies and beans and corn are all mixed in really well. Okay, scrape down the sides a little. Looks pretty good. So now, one of the most important parts of cooking is tasting. You always want to taste your work before you serve it so that you know if it's good or not. You don't want to be guessing at what you're serving people. Try to get a little bit of everything on my fork. Some pepper and corn, pickle, a little bit of bean. Perfect. Still like my mayo better, I think. But in a pinch, it's a great substitute. It's not too peppery. I don't think we need to add any salt, but that's up to you. You can always add a little more salt. It's hard to take salt out of a dish, so it's always best to be on the cautious side. You want to come try this, Amanda?
Sure. It's good.
It's good?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
It's always a good depth of flavor to what you cook.
Thank you. Yeah, that's one of the keys with all the different spices too, is you get a lot of different levels in the flavor. You want some smoky, a little bit of spicy, a little salty, and then you have a little bit of acid from the pickles, the vinegar. So it's a nice balance, I think. I think that's one of the reasons why people really like it, is that it's a very balanced, well-rounded dish.
So thank you guys so much for watching.
Yeah.
Definitely follow Indie Veg Fest. I know they're going to be doing more of these types of videos soon.
Follow Sea Salt and Cinnamon.
Sure, follow us as well. But yeah, we hope you enjoy it. We'd love to know the different kinds of things that you add to it and kind of the different ways that you make it your own. And then we'd love to also hear, you know, what your friends and family think.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much, and we will see you around.
Thanks.